Hey guys, what's going on? Welcome back for another Form Check Friday. As always, if you want to get featured on Form Check Fridays, go ahead and submit your lifting video to formcheckfriday@gmail.com. We do a random draw each week and put 5 lifters up on this TV. We talk about their lifts, maybe some of the faults, and tell them how to fix it. If you guys are interested in a more detailed form check, we do offer paid form check service at calgarybarbell.com in our coaching shop. If you're interested in that, it's going to come with a whole bunch of cues to help you fix your lift. It's going to come with training recommendations in terms of what accessory and supplemental exercises can help you break your plateaus in those lifts, as well as it comes with a personalized video from one of our coaches explaining all the things we talked about in the write-up that we give you. That being said, let's get on to our first video today, and it is a squat coming from Josh Malba. Now, Josh looks like he's got a pretty high bar squat. One thing that I think is going to hang Josh up a little bit, and you can see it in the later reps, we start running into a pretty pronounced sticking point, is a bit of overextension. So a little bit of reaching too high up with the chest. Now, I think the two things that this is going to kind of cause Josh is, number one, a bit of a lack of depth. It looks like we're right on the line, and maybe it's getting a little bit tough to get much deeper than that because of how overextended the back is. Now, if we can get into a little bit more of a allow yourself to lean kind of a position, and let that torso come forward a little bit, which is going to seem really weird the first few times you do it. It's going to feel like you're leaning way far out in front of yourself. I think we're going to see a little bit of a smoother transition through that sticking point. One thing that I've noticed with high bar squatters in general is there's a very pronounced sticking point, and it might be worth investigating to see if you squat a little bit better or more comfortably with a more low bar style squat. What I mean by that is, again, sort of tucking the ribs down, allowing yourself to lean a little bit, getting a little bit more of a pronounced torso angle, and seeing how those kind of mechanics work for your body. We'll see if that helps. Our next video is some deadlifts from Shendi. Now Shendi's doing a conventional style deadlift. It's 405 for a set of 2. Obviously very strong, but one thing I would work on trying to do is pull the slack out of the bar more. We could probably get a little bit more extended, a little bit more neutral through the back. So try to get a little more extension through that low back. And also just make sure that you're pulling the slack out of the bar properly. We want you to really kind of pull yourself into the bar. Make sure that the bar is not pulling you out of position as you initiate the lift, and make sure there's some tension set into the bar when you go to start the deadlift. Now, the biggest difference, or one of the big differences in my opinion, between the squat and the bench and the deadlift is going to be that there's an eccentric phase in the squat and the bench. There is time and an eccentric phase for us to sort of build up elastic energy to try and ensure that we're in a good position, ensure that we have tightness and are ready to go through the concentric phase of the movement. With Shendi's deadlift here, we're not taking advantage of the fact, we're not properly creating the same tension. So I want you guys to think about the fact that with the deadlift, it's obviously from a dead stop. There's no eccentric or loading phase. So it's on us to try to create all of that same tension, elastic energy, and very strong positioning to ensure that we're in a good place and sort of primed and ready to go through the concentric portion of the movement. So pulling the slack out of the bar is going to allow you to maintain better position in terms of staying the way that you set your body, and it's going to allow you to be a little bit more ready to lift heavier weights off the floor so they don't end up pulling you out of position, changing your position, or putting you in a disadvantaged position. Next up are some deadlifts from Danny. There we go. And I think there's one major fault that Danny's committing, or one thing that we're seeing with Danny's deadlifts that he could really improve on, and that is his shoulder positioning. So it looks to me like each time he initiates the pull, the hips raise just a little bit, which I don't think in this case is a problematic amount of hip rise. So I wouldn't worry too much about that, but what happens is that does contribute to a little bit more of an increased torso angle. which is putting his shoulders in a bit of a position where they're getting pulled forward and that bar is being pulled away from him. So what I would try to do, Danny, is I would try to really lock those shoulder blades down. Essentially what we're trying to do is we're trying to shorten the lever, right? So we have the lever of the shoulder to the hips, because the shoulders are pulling all the bar's weight off the floor, and the hips are generally going to be the joint that's producing all the force. So what we want to do is we want to try to get this point of contact with the lever shortened. So when we move the shoulder blade or the scapula down the back properly, it shortens that lever. It allows you to get more compressive force and less shear force through the back. So what we want is we want those shoulder blades a little further down the back, a little bit more lat engagement. Think about making your arms long and low, trying to connect the shoulder blades all the way down through the hips. Now, if you can get that, I feel like that's gonna make it a lot more comfortable for you to stay more upright, not get pulled out of position, and all those kinds of good things. So let me know how that goes for you, man. For our next submission, it comes from Jo. Now, Jo's doing some squats here, and this 70% beltless pause squats. A couple things that I've noticed here. Number one, we have a little bit of a tendency to be pretty far forward on the toes. So I would try to make sure that, again, we have those famous 3 points of contact, right? Ball of the foot, just under the pinky toe, and the heel. Make sure that those points of contact, that we have that pressure spread evenly between all those, and try to make sure that throughout the movement, we don't see ourselves shifting around on that too much. The next thing I'm seeing is probably way too much depth. I think that you're gonna be able to maintain a lot better contraction throughout the movement, and therefore tightness, and a lot better positioning if we cut that depth a little bit. We're sitting, I don't know, maybe a good 5 or 6 inches below parallel, very, very far below parallel. So I would try to cut that squat a little bit higher if you can comfortably. For a lot of people, that's just their natural stopping point. So if that's the case, disregard that. But I do think that you can create sort of a natural end range of motion that's higher by creating more tightness through your hips and trunk. And we notice definitely on the single that he included at the end here, that we have a tendency for that bar to kind of roll and for that upper back to loosen up. So what I want you to focus on is, as you hit the bottom of the squat, both in the last little bit of the eccentric and the first little bit of the concentric, really try to make sure those shoulder blades are glued down onto the ribs. We want to make sure that we're kind of pulling the elbows down towards the side or pushing the elbows forward. Any number of cues to try to tighten up the lats and the muscles of the upper back to put you in a better position, so we're not letting that bar pull you forward out of the bottom. Hopefully those cues help you. Our last video is some bench press from David. Now David's from the Dominican Republic, so shout out to the Dominican Republic. And he's doing some bench press here. He says he's getting a little bit of pain in his left tricep, has tried to accommodate by changing his grip width. He wants to know if I have any opinion on grip width or about his bench press. So I think that if you move your grip wider and your tricep doesn't hurt anymore, that's probably a good move for you. Generally, those are the kind of recommendations that I will make, is if there's a solid reason behind it, I don't see any reason, I don't see any reason to inherently be wider or narrower as a rule. I mean, everything we do, or most things that we do here, are based on some loose rules and a lot of individual circumstantial recommendations. So if moving wider feels better on your tricep, David, I would stay wider. I don't see anything wrong with a lot of what your upper body's doing in the bench press. So I would say that you can stay there just fine, and keep benching nice and wide. Things look good. It looks like you're a fairly long human being, kind of like Dylan. Very long limbs, long proportions, pretty tall. And as such, it looks like I would play with your foot position. Because it looks like on the last few reps of this set, we're definitely starting to see the butt come up. And even from the first few reps, I could kind of tell with how your foot positioning was, that it's going to be easy for you to push your butt up in the air, which is going to cause you to get red lights from those side judges. So what I recommend is either trying to move your feet tuck them further in towards you, so in under the bench, and pull them back underneath you more, or put them out further. In any case, what we're trying to do with the leg drive on the bench press, let's say this is you lying on the bench and this is your head here with your shoulders up here, is we want to create force pushing this way. If your legs are too much underneath you, a lot of times what happens is we push force upwards and then we start to see that butt come up. What we want to do is we want to reinforce this decline position by using the legs to push back towards your head. So if your legs are either out here or further back here, in most cases that's going to make that easier to do. So of all the things is I would play with your foot position, try to find a way where you can get that force or pressure back towards your head, pushing you back up on your traps without kicking your butt up in the air. All right, guys, that's it for today. If you're interested in submitting for Form Check Friday, the email is formcheckfriday@gmail.com. If you're interested in a paid form check, we do those at calgarybarbell.com in our coaching shop, so go check those out. Thanks to everybody for submitting. Thanks to everybody for tuning in, and hopefully we'll be back on that live stream-ish pretty quick here. We haven't done one of those in a while. We've been super, super busy. September is proving to be a very time-consuming month. Most of our weekends and weekdays are very filled up right now, so we'll do our best to get back on that live stream. But until then, hopefully you guys enjoy these Form Check Fridays as per usual each and every week on Friday. Take it easy, y'all. We'll see you next time.